Hey guys! Today I'll show you a science fiction thriller TV series named Kyle XY, Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The drama begins with a boy covered in slime appearing naked in the forest, devoid of any memories. It's as if he's a newborn, encountering everything as a stranger. Yet he has extraordinary learning and defensive abilities. A rattlesnake suddenly appears before him, shaking its tail in preparation to strike. The boy grabs the snake by the neck, neutralizing its attack and sending it slithering away. The boy wanders into the city, drawing the attention and curiosity of passers-by. The police, unable to identify him, place him in a juvenile detention center. Meanwhile, a woman named Nicole calls her daughter to wake up. The daughter, Lori, opens her eyes to find her boyfriend, Declan, still in her smelly bed. Just as Nicole is about to enter the room and discover them, a phone call saves the day. It's the juvenile center, asking Nicole to check on the boy because she's a psychologist. The boy lacks any survival skills. In the detention center, he watches others prepare to eat and mimics their actions, putting food into his mouth. The boy being watched feels annoyed and plans to confront him. Just then, a staff member intervenes, explaining that the boy doesn't understand a word he's saying. After lunch, the boys head outside for activities. The boy who felt annoyed approaches to settle the score. Meanwhile, the newcomer struggles with his first meal, and the escalating stomach pain hampers his performance, leading to him getting punched and knocked to the ground. The staff member arrives just in time to disperse the onlookers. Nicole visits the detention center and learns they've named the boy Kyle. While she's gathering information about him, the staff member mentions that Kyle has a physical anomaly. He doesn't have a belly button. Later, Nicole returns home to discuss with her husband, Steven, and their children the possibility of bringing Kyle to their home for a few days. After some persuasion from Steven, the kids agree. The next day, Nicole brings Kyle home. He's captivated by the images on the computer screen, which trigger complex mathematical formulas in his mind, leaving him with a sense of mental overload. Nicole helps Kyle start a game, instructing Lori to keep an eye on him while she handles some urgent work. However, Lori, engrossed in a phone call with Declan, fails to notice that Kyle has slipped outside. Kyle follows the enchanting sound of a piano to his neighbor Amanda's house. The beautiful melodies, infused with a sense of numerical mystery, bring him a feeling of happiness. Amanda is startled by Kyle's sudden appearance, prompting him to quickly run back to Nicole's house and hide in the bathtub. Just then, Lori's brother returns home from school, ready to take care of his urgent business, and catches sight of Kyle peeking out from the bathtub. Startled, he bolts out of the bathroom, pants still around his ankles. Nicole introduces Kyle to her son, Josh, explaining that he's the boy she brought home. Later, Amanda's mother comes looking for her after Kyle's unexpected visit, warning Nicole that such behavior is unacceptable. After Nicole apologizes, Amanda and her mom leave, and the family sits down for dinner. During the meal, Nicole notices that Kyle is learning to behave like a typical person by mimicking them, and his learning speed is astonishing. The next day, Josh helps Kyle take an intelligence test. Surprisingly, Kyle completes the hour-long test in just 5 minutes, getting all the answers right. As a result, Nicole and Josh take Kyle to the hospital for further examination. After a brain scan, everyone is shocked to find that Kyle's brain activity is nearly at 100%, leading them to suspect a malfunction in the machine, as even a genius like Einstein only had 9%. The doctor warns that if Kyle's brain remains so active, he could face seizures, strokes, or tumors. That night, while everyone else is asleep, Kyle spots Lori sneaking out and follows her to a club. Unaware of what they're doing, he feels the place is like hell for him. Suddenly, the police arrive, breaking up the gathering. Kyle sees an officer grabbing Lori and steps in to confront him. Surprisingly, the officer backs down, allowing them to escape. Kyle carries the drunk Lori back home. While Steven was fixing the computer, Nicole discussed with him the possibility of taking Kyle in for a longer time. The juvenile facility was terrible for him, and Steven felt exhausted, thinking Nicole was too invested in her work, but he didn't oppose her decision. Kyle saw the code on Steven's computer and felt his brain activate, quickly typing out the code he had just seen on another computer, restoring the photos Steven had failed to fix. Josh was happy to see Kyle retrieve the magazine for him and gladly taught him how to shoot hoops. During dinner, Nicole and the kids once again brought up the idea of keeping Kyle for a while longer, and the kids showed their agreement with their actions. At 1:22 a.m., while everyone else sleeps, Kyle feels energized and eager to explore the unknown. Starting from nowhere, he opens the refrigerator and samples various foods, putting everything in his mouth, whether it's processed or not. After indulging, he discovers Josh's candy, plops down on the sofa with the treats, and accidentally presses a remote that turns on the TV. Captivated by a show about Chinese martial arts, Kyle immerses himself, impressively mastering the art. The rest of the family, drawn by the noise, is stunned to see Kyle grasping the essence of martial arts. However, they're baffled by Kyle's lack of a concept of time. He doesn't even know what sleeping is. Having spent a week at Nicole's house without ever sleeping, he feels no discomfort. Josh jokingly concludes that Kyle must be an alien. Nicole hires a private detective to find any information about Kyle's identity, but it's clear there's nothing to be found. When they return to the hospital for another checkup, the doctor still doesn't identify any abnormalities in Kyle's body. Aside from his unusually heightened brain activity and the absence of a belly button, the doctor gives Nicole some sleeping pills to help Kyle get to sleep. Back at home, Josh shares his thoughts with his mom, insisting that Kyle must be an alien, presenting his arguments logically. To help Kyle sleep better, Nicole brews him some chamomile tea, which Kyle mistakenly thinks is a tea bag to eat. This odd behavior only reinforces Josh's belief that Kyle is indeed an alien, leading him to jot down this new piece of evidence in his notebook. Stephen gives Kyle a bath, and for the first time, Kyle feels an overwhelming sense of safety, likening himself to a tea bag submerged in water. Stephen quickly pulls him out, fearing he might drown. Meanwhile, Josh notes down this incident in his notebook. Kyle tunes into a radio that emits static sounds, which he finds soothing. Josh writes that Kyle enjoys monotonous noise, then turns off the radio, explaining that it will interfere with his sleep. Nicole and Stephen offer him water and sleeping pills, but Kyle still doesn't feel tired and walks out the door. Once outside, Kyle notices a car following him. As he continues walking, he encounters a dog that has been barking at him. After watching the dog for a moment, it stops barking and comes to his side. Amanda finds it magical and asks how he did that. Kyle simply says he can't sleep. Amanda mentions she's doing nothing but watching the stars, says some things Kyle doesn't understand, and bids him farewell before heading back to sleep. Returning home, Kyle bumps into Lori, who is about to leave, and her parents catch them in the act, disrupting Lori's plans. Josh asks Kyle where he went, and Kyle replies he went to look at the stars. This further convinces Josh that Kyle is an alien. He writes another note in his notebook, telling Kyle that someone up there must be watching him and that one day a spaceship will come to take him away. Kyle believes Josh and goes out to the lawn, staring up at the sky, waiting for his alien family to come. Nicole and Stephen decide to take turns watching Kyle at night to ensure his safety. However, Kyle remains wide awake and energetic. The next morning, Stephen is furious, having missed an important meeting due to lack of sleep. He argues that they can't keep Kyle at home any longer as it's disrupting their normal lives. Hearing their conversation, Kyle decides to run away and doesn't return for the entire day. While the family wonders where he could be, Nicole notices a drawing Kyle made. They all head to the forest depicted in the drawing and find Kyle lying on the ground, gazing up at the sky, convinced that this is how his family will find him. They tell him they are his family. Once back home, after washing his face, Kyle feels tired and in need of relaxation. He grabs the radio, tunes into the soothing static, and lies back in the bathtub, falling into a deep sleep. Kyle is slowly learning to live like a normal person and adapting to life with Nicole's family. Everyone at home has their own tasks, leaving Kyle with nothing to do, so Stephen takes him to work. Meanwhile, the detective calls Nicole, informing her that they believe Kyle might be connected to a murder case. A body, shot and doused in lime, has been found in the forest where Kyle appeared, along with a strange symbol. The detectives consider Kyle the prime suspect, but Nicole insists that he can't be involved. They hope Nicole can help jog Kyle's memory to assist in the investigation. While drawing at Stephen's office, Kyle discovers a malfunctioning server. He feels as if the server is calling to him, wanting him to be useful in this busy environment. Just then, Stephen walks out of a meeting and is informed by the receptionist that Kyle is missing. They search together and find Kyle sitting on the floor of the server room, surrounded by parts. Stephen anxiously calls for a technician, worried that the boss will discover Kyle has broken the server. Just as their boss emerges from his office to investigate the email issue, Kyle connects the last wire and fixes the server. Stephen finally breathes a sigh of relief and praises him for a job well done. Back at home, Kyle is drawing in the bathtub. Nicole tells him he can use the table to draw and suggests that since he can now sleep normally, he can sleep in Josh's room. However, Kyle prefers to stay in the bathtub as it provides him with a sense of safety and comfort. Nicole shows him a photo from the detective, asking him to identify the strange symbol, but he can't figure it out. As Nicole discusses this with Steven and the detective, Lori walks into the kitchen and asks what they're talking about. Nicole deliberately conceals the topic, but every word they discuss reaches the ears of a man eavesdropping outside. Steven suggests that tomorrow Lori should take Kyle to work with her, but Lori is not keen, making excuses that Kyle will scare off customers. Seeing Josh struggle with math, Kyle instinctively blurts out the answer. Josh then asks Kyle to help him with his homework, and Kyle eagerly agrees. The next day, Lori doesn't take Kyle to work as promised because she's been fired. She leaves Kyle alone at home while she goes out with friends. Left to his own devices, Kyle reflects that everyone in the house has a purpose and contributes in different ways, except for him. Just then, the TV loses its signal, and Kyle sees an opportunity to help the household. He grabs the TV manual, climbs onto the roof to adjust the antenna, and restores the picture on the patterned screen. As Amanda drives back and sees Kyle jumping off the roof, she's taken aback and crashes into a trash can. Kyle rushes to help Amanda pick up the debris, and astonished, she asks how he managed that. He casually replies that he had to come down. Amanda can't comprehend how he jumped from such a height without a scratch, and as she glances at her damaged car, she begins to worry about whether her mom will scold her. At this moment, Lori returns and calls Kyle to come home. Meanwhile, at Steven's company, his subordinates are discussing the need to buy a big house, unaware that their team is about to be laid off. Once back home, Lori teaches Kyle how to lie, helping her cover up the fact that she has been fired. During dinner, the family asks Kyle how his day at work with Lori went, but he doesn't respond. Lori explains that he didn't fit in there. Josh suggests that Kyle could join him at school, but their dad doesn't think it's a good idea and asks about Josh's homework from the day before. Josh quickly says he passed. Hearing their conversation makes Kyle extremely thirsty and his heart race, and he finally admits that he did Josh's homework and stayed home instead of going to the cafe. Speaking the truth doesn't feel good, so he climbs up to the roof to ponder why that is. Steven climbs up the ladder to join him, and they sit on the roof talking. Kyle struggles to understand why helping others could be wrong. Lying feels wrong, yet the truth can hurt people too. Steven helps him sort through these thoughts, and Kyle learns the difference between lies and well-meaning lies. Kyle's habit of sleeping in the bathtub every night is starting to affect the family's morning bathroom routine, leading to complaints from the kids. To surprise him, the couple convert the workspace into a bedroom with a bathtub just for Kyle. While helping Kyle organize his drawings, Nicole notices that the central pattern in them matches the strange symbol from the detective. She consults the detective, but he doesn't find any more valuable information. Amanda visits Kyle's room and discovers some portraits of herself. Thinking Kyle is spying on her sexy body, she leaves, somewhat annoyed. Lori is about to head to the pool, and Steven asks her to take Kyle and Josh with her. Amanda, who is the lifeguard there, will teach Kyle how to swim. It only takes Kyle a little while to learn, and he swims really well. Amanda calls him to the shore to chat about the drawings. Kyle explains that they are memories from his mind, with no special meaning, and asks for her forgiveness. Seeing Kyle's innocent nature, Amanda decides not to hold it against him. She takes him back to her house, shows him some of her father's paintings, and plays the piano for him. Kyle feels a complex mix of emotions towards Amanda that he can't quite describe, so he resorts to expressing himself through art. As the kids prepare to attend a party, Kyle learns that Amanda will be there too, and he brings along his drawings to share. Nicole agrees to let Kyle go to the party, but is in a cold war with Steven over it. Steven believes Kyle needs to interact with people to better integrate into ordinary life. At the party, Kyle sees Amanda introducing her boyfriend, and a painful signal hits him. He tosses his drawing into the pool and heads home with the other kids. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure is in a dark little room signing his resignation letter. This mysterious man, Tom, had been eavesdropping on the couple's conversation earlier and secretly followed Kyle after he left. As part of his resignation process, Tom must hand in a keycard, which bears the same mysterious symbol that the detective discovered and matches the symbols in Kyle's drawings. When Tom returns home, he finds a staff member who signed the report sitting on his couch. The man tells Tom he noticed something strange. While deactivating Tom's keycard, he discovered that Tom's level couldn't execute his previous task, suggesting he might have done something without the company's knowledge. Feeling threatened, Tom tells him to get out. As the man leaves, he picks up Tom's folder and claims he knows there are secrets hidden here, including Kyle's information. Not feeling threatened, the man returns and remarks that he never expected someone like Tom would engage in such activities. Before he can finish, Tom swiftly takes him down. After summer break, the kids return to school. To help Kyle adapt to life among people, Nicole decides to arrange for him to attend school. She proposes one-on-one tutoring for his special needs, but the school refuses due to high costs, and instead prepares a high school entrance exam to see if they will allow Kyle to enroll. Kyle is curious about everything on campus and wants to explore, so he follows the principal to take the test. In Lori's classroom, the teacher intentionally poses difficult questions to challenge the students and ignite their passion for math. During the test, Kyle knows nothing beyond math. He doesn't even know who Washington is or what happened in America in 1942. When the bell rings, Kyle sees his classmates leaving the classroom and follows suit, unknowingly returning to Lori's classroom from earlier. He sees a question written on the board and instinctively solves it. The teacher is astonished, as no student has ever answered that question correctly before. At lunchtime, Kyle sits next to a bookworm kid. His classmates don't like him, and anyone who stays close to him gets ostracized too. However, Kyle strikes up a conversation with the bookworm kid after noticing his drawings and admits he doesn't know who Washington is and struggles with the test. The bookworm kid takes Kyle to the library and recommends an encyclopedia where he can find the answers he's seeking. Kyle spends half a day exploring the origins of humanity and world civilizations, quickly absorbing the contents of 22 books and 17,000 articles. After the family leaves, Tom sneaks into Nicole's house, moving from room to install surveillance cameras. When Nicole returns home, Tom hides in Kyle's room, avoiding detection while creating the illusion of a home invasion. Outside, he pretends to be a security guard, claiming he saw someone trying to enter through the window and happened to follow them. Stephen, feeling uneasy about Tom's story, verifies his identity with the security company. It turns out that after resigning from the mysterious organization, Tom took a job at the community security company to keep a closer watch on Kyle. At school, Josh mocks a classmate who struggles to read aloud. This angers the classmate, who later ambushes Josh in the hallway and punches him. Kyle witnesses the scene and rushes over to intervene. However, the boy kicks Kyle down the stairs. When Josh sees Kyle fall, he pushes the boy in frustration, prompting the boy to retaliate against Josh, but Kyle steps in again. The boy throws a punch at the wall in anger. Determined to take on both Kyle and Josh, the boy tries to land a hit, but Kyle's quick reflexes make him impossible to hit. In a moment of clumsiness, the boy slips and nearly falls down the stairs, but Kyle grabs him and pulls him back up. The principal witnesses all of this and, already reluctant to keep Kyle, becomes even more determined to expel him, insisting that Kyle is not allowed at school for fighting. At that moment, Lori informs the teacher that it was Kyle who solved the difficult question. The teacher insists that the principal must keep Kyle in school. The principal refuses, citing Kyle's inability to pass the test. Kyle interjects that he can now complete the test as he has memorized an entire encyclopedia in just half an hour, covering what would typically take 5 hours. Reluctantly, the principal agrees to allow Kyle to attend school if he passes the test. Kyle expresses his desire to attend school like everyone else, rather than receiving one-on-one tutoring, so he can learn the knowledge he seeks. Before heading home, the bookworm kid gives Kyle a drawing he made of him as a heroic figure, comparing him to a superhero from a comic book. This makes Kyle happy to have gained a new friend. That night, a thunderstorm rolls in, and Kyle experiences his first nightmare. A man with glasses approaches him. At the same time, someone knocks on his window. It's Declan, Lori's boyfriend. After a brief exchange, Kyle agrees to let him stay the night and offers him a blanket. The next morning, Lori tries to sneak Declan out, but they run into Stephen at the door. Declan is forced to pretend he just arrived to celebrate Lori's birthday. For breakfast, Nicole makes blueberry pancakes to celebrate. They reminisce about family traditions, making Kyle feel sad about not having those memories himself. After breakfast, Kyle shares with Nicole that he had a nightmare and shows her a drawing of the man from his dream. He believes this isn't just a dream, but a real memory, recalling that it was also stormy the night he woke up wet in the forest. Kyle wants to explore his memories further, but Nicole reassures him that medication can have side effects and that he shouldn't rush. He can take his time to remember. Listening to her advice, Kyle begins to calm down. While checking the windows, Stephen discovers footprints and blood on the window frame. He runs into Tom on patrol and explains the situation along with Kyle's drawing. Tom claims not to recognize the man and agrees to turn the drawing over to the police for investigation. Later, Tom makes a phone call from his car, telling the person on the other end that he's encountered trouble because Kyle is starting to remember things. Once home, Tom watches Kyle through the surveillance cameras. Stephen and Nicole, troubled by recent events, begin to entertain absurd ideas about Kyle's identity, almost believing Josh's alien accusations. Feeling lonely, Amanda comes to find Kyle and chats with him in the bathtub. Meanwhile, Lori pulls out Josh's board games for the kids to play. They decide to play a game involving a Ouija board, asking questions to which the board will provide answers. Each child takes turns asking questions. When it's Kyle's turn, he asks the board when his birthday is. Miraculously, the board starts moving, revealing a series of numbers ending with 27. While the others dismiss it as just a game, Kyle becomes intrigued by the significance of the numbers. The rain had stopped, and the kids stepped outside to breathe in the fresh air. Kyle gazed up at the sky, sensing the pressure in the air, then suddenly turned to the others and told them to get inside. Just then, a flash of lightning struck, shattering a flower pot. Once back inside, Kyle searched online for the meaning of the numbers he had seen, while Josh continued to chatter on about how Kyle was an alien. This irritated Kyle, making him excited and urgently telling Nicole that he didn't want to be seen as a freak anymore. Nicole took her time to calm Kyle down, helping him regulate his breathing and assuring him that everything would be okay. Tom dropped by again to inform Stephen about the intruder, and Kyle recognized Tom, quickly clarifying that it was normal to see him around since he patrols the area. Tom revealed that Declan, who had fled the scene, had left blood and footprints on the window. After some persuasion from Lori, Declan decided to turn himself in. Feeling calmer, Kyle took down his drawings of memories from the wall, each one making him feel sad. Amanda told him that not having past memories might actually be a good thing, as some painful memories were better left forgotten. Her words cheered Kyle up, and he no longer dwelled on it. Once the couple learned the truth, they felt relieved and began chatting easily about the kids. They continued preparing Lori's birthday cake, and Kyle helped by placing the candles on it. Just as Josh was unsure how to apologize to Kyle, Kyle spoke up, saying he's not mad at him anymore. Josh happily shared their family tradition of swapping regular candles for trick ones that can't be blown out, meant to prank the birthday person. Lori told Kyle that he could celebrate his birthday with her until he remembered his own. They could make wishes together and blow out the unquenchable candles. The next morning, Stephen was reading the newspaper and checking the weather forecast when Kyle spotted a photo of the man with glasses. It was the same person reported in the paper. Nicole called the detective to inform him about this development. The scene shifts to Kyle, keeping searching for information about the man he remembered. It's Professor Kern, who had been missing. Nicole advised Kyle to stop fixating on it, suggesting he go out to play basketball with Josh's friends. Kyle quickly calculated the angles, speeds, and wind direction, sinking every shot effortlessly. His impressive skills caught the attention of a basketball boy who invited him to join their team at the gym. The next day, Josh helped Kyle get his basketball uniform ready, teaching him some humorous lingo. Kyle made a breakfast of milk-soaked gummy candies, fully prepared for basketball, and the family was excited for him. At the gym, the basketball boy persuaded the coach to let Kyle join the team, but Declan kept trying to block him. While they argued over it, the coach noticed Kyle's incredible shooting skills and agreed to let him join the team for the weekend game. When they returned home, the family celebrated Kyle making the basketball team. The couple discussed Kyle's drawings of Professor Kern, convinced there must be a connection between them. Meanwhile, the news reported that a body had been found in the forest. It was Professor Kern. Nicole wanted to confirm this with the detective, but it seemed he was avoiding her calls. When Kyle arrived at the basketball court, he was still unfamiliar with the game's techniques and was knocked down by Declan. The basketball boy helped him up, encouraging him to keep going. Watching Kyle train from outside the gym, Josh thought of a money-making idea: betting on games. He decided to place bets with his classmates on who would win, undoubtedly choosing Kyle. Back home, he gathered a pile of books and video materials for Kyle to learn game techniques and prepare for the upcoming match. Later, Declan and the basketball boy arrived at the house to deliver the game schedule and to apologize to Kyle for the incident earlier. Meanwhile, Tom was still monitoring Kyle's every move on his surveillance equipment. After receiving a mysterious phone call, he pulled out a syringe, loaded it with drugs, and grabbed a gun before heading out. He drove to find a homeless man, offering him a lucrative deal for some work, assuring him it wasn't anything bad. The next day at the basketball gym, Kyle tried out the moves from Josh's materials, mimicking the legendary Michael Jordan while shouting out the lingo Josh had taught him. Seeing how well Kyle performed made Declan feel insecure, and he attempted the same moves but failed, injuring his ankle in the process. Despite the pain, he pushed through the training, fearful that the demanding coach would replace him. Kyle, on the other hand, was lost in the joy that basketball brought him. Kyle's first basketball game was quickly approaching, and Nicole's family came out to cheer for him, with Steven being especially enthusiastic, which made Josh a bit jealous. In the first half, Kyle shone brightly, earning cheers from the crowd and support from his teammates. As the competition intensified, however, Kyle made a mistake. The blame from his teammates, disappointment from the audience, and the coach's scolding drained Kyle's enthusiasm for the game. A determined Declan was knocked to the ground by an opposing player and couldn't continue. The coach only offered him the choice to either quit the team or keep playing, and unable to endure the pain, Declan chose to give up. The aggressive coach then insisted that Kyle take Declan's place, but Kyle refused, and one by one the other players backed him up. As a result, they were disqualified from the match. But for Kyle, it felt like a victory because he gained a great friend in Declan. Unfortunately, it was a rough day for poor Josh, who lost a lot of money betting and got caught by his dad, who refused to cover for him. Upset, Josh confronted Steven, asking if he could only see the good in Kyle and never showed him the same enthusiasm. His father admitted he could be a bit tough, but insisted he loved Josh the most. In the end, Josh had to use his game console to pay off his debt. Nicole sought out the detective to ask why he hadn't been in touch. The detective explained that the case had been solved and that Kyle had nothing to do with it, so he didn't need to know the details. It turned out that Tom had injected the drugs into the homeless man and handed him the gun used to kill Professor Kern, making the man a scapegoat. When Nicole returned home, she shared this with Kyle. That night, Kyle dreamed of Tom shooting Professor Kern, waking up in a panic and jumping out of the bathtub. This suggested that Tom must know something about Kyle's identity mystery, but it's still unclear why Tom killed Professor Kern. As Kyle's dream began to crystallize, Nicole sought the assistance of a hypnotherapist to help him piece together his fragmented memories. As the hypnosis began, Kyle first recalled a stormy day when he was in a car and saw Professor Kern looking in. At that moment, Tom appeared, fighting with Kern and ultimately shooting him. Seeing Kyle in such distress, the hypnotherapist guided him into another phase to uncover what happened before these events. Suddenly, Kyle began to babble incoherently, spilling out a string of unintelligible words. The hypnotherapist quickly awakened him, but Kyle continued to search for answers. Declan, visiting Lori, wanted to check out Washington University. Kyle expressed his desire to join him, as Professor Kern had taught there, and he hoped to find a connection. Concerned that Tom's presence might affect Kyle, the couple transferred Tom's job. Lori helped Kyle craft a story that convinced Nicole to allow Kyle to go to Washington University with Declan and Lori. At home, Nicole replayed the incantation Kyle uttered while under hypnosis, and Tom confronted her about the reason for his job transfer. Nicole gave vague responses, not revealing the truth. At Washington University, Lori accompanied Kyle to Professor Kern's office, where they encountered his former assistant. Lori explained their purpose, but the assistant claimed not to recognize Kyle. Kyle recalled that Kern's research focused on brain development and believed it must relate to his high IQ, convinced he had participated in the research. He suggested taking a doctoral exam, and, unsurprisingly, his answers were all correct. The assistant was taken aback by Kyle's intelligence in other tests as well. As the assistant and Lori discussed Kyle's unexpected results, Kyle spotted a photograph of a man who looked exactly like him. However, the photo was taken in 1985, eliminating the possibility that it was of him. At home, Josh overheard Kyle's incantation and remained convinced that Kyle was an alien. Nicole interrupted his imagination, slowing down the recording, revealing that Kyle was reciting a series of letters and numbers in a loop. The assistant approached Kyle, telling him he had fulfilled Kern's dream of matching the human brain with a computer. But that wasn't what Kyle wanted. He only wanted to know who he was. The next day, the assistant gathered information about the man in the photo and brought Kyle to meet an elderly woman. Upon seeing Kyle, she remarked on how much he resembled a researcher named Adam, stating she couldn't be mistaken because Adam was the top graduate and often worked with Professor Kern on research. He was a good person who frequently visited her. Kyle asked for Adam's address and phone number, but the woman regretfully informed them that Adam had been missing for 20 years. The group then visited Adam's former studio, searching through materials for information about Kyle. At home, Steven decoded Kyle's incantation, discovering it was a set of coordinates. Upon seeing the materials, Kyle felt an indescribable connection. He understood Adam's thoughts and could comprehend his research. He found a drawing Adam created 20 years ago featuring the strange symbol and the coordinates. The couple learned that the three of them were at Washington University and called to check on them. Lori informed her parents that Kyle had found coordinates that matched Steven's decoding. Instead of rushing back as Steven suggested, Kyle decided to leave Lori at Washington University while he and Declan drove to the coordinates. Kyle entered the forest alone, asking Declan to wait outside to prevent him from getting hurt. Just as he was about to climb over the iron fence, a masked figure suddenly pulled him down. Kyle managed to get behind the masked person and pulled off their mask, revealing it was Tom. Tom urgently warned Kyle to leave the area before they discovered him, claiming that they would kill him and that Steven's family would also be in danger. He urged Kyle to forget the past and stop asking questions. Hearing Declan calling for him, Kyle decided to heed Tom's advice and left the forest. Back home, he told his family he would no longer pursue the matter, asserting that knowing the truth wouldn't change his life. Declan didn't believe Kyle's words and pressed him about what he had seen in the forest, promising to keep it a secret. Meanwhile, a group monitoring Kyle through surveillance called him by the code name 27. A mysterious organization was about to surface, and the secrets they shared with Kyle were about to be revealed. After Tom stopped Kyle from continuing his investigation into his origins, the mysterious company discovered that Kyle was still alive, which surprised them because he was supposed to have been dealt with 2 months ago. Consequently, the female leader of the company ordered his immediate apprehension. Kyle and Josh arrived at a carnival where Josh confidently believed he was a heartthrob, thinking the girls were talking about him. However, Kyle learned to read lips in just a few seconds and conveyed to Josh that the girls were not discussing him at all. Impressed by Kyle's learning ability, Josh remarked that there was nothing he couldn't learn. The female leader noticed that someone was secretly protecting Kyle and decided he needed to be eliminated as well. Tom had a phone call with a mysterious figure, discussing Kyle's current situation. When they got home, Nicole wanted to talk to Kyle about why he suddenly stopped pursuing his origins after returning from college. Kyle rejected her attempt, giving her the same answer as before. The past was in the past, and he just wanted to focus on living well in the present. Nicole felt she could no longer treat Kyle. He was no longer just her patient, and she couldn't objectively assess his condition. As Kyle was about to leave, Declan arrived and asked him if he was really going to give up just because of one thing Tom said. But Kyle believed that pursuing the investigation would only put Nicole's family in danger. In another room, Steven and Nicole discussed Declan and Lori while Josh listened outside, mistakenly thinking they were discussing his report card. Since he couldn't hear any sound coming from the room, he suggested Kyle try out his supposed superpower of hearing distant conversations, considering he was no ordinary person. Kyle thought the ability sounded cool and focused his attention, indeed discovering he could hear the conversation between his parents inside. He repeated something Steven had said before walking away, as he wasn't going to help Josh eavesdrop. Meanwhile, the mysterious company found information on Tom, revealing that he had been an employee responsible for Project 27, but resigned after Kern's disappearance. The female leader sent a henchman to follow Tom and see what he could discover. After realizing that Kyle had a unique ability to hear distant conversations, Josh wanted to test just how far Kyle could hear. He asked Kyle to listen to people talking in a noisy environment. While Kyle was concentrating on overhearing conversations, it felt as if a light flashed in his mind, like an electric charge warning him to stop using his special ability. Remembering Declan's earlier advice, Kyle realized he had a new method for investigation, using his hearing. He decided to follow Declan's suggestion and continue secretly investigating, keeping it from everyone. He told Declan about his ability to hear and expressed his desire to investigate Tom further. They went to the front desk of Tom's workplace, where Kyle used his lip-reading skills to exchange information with the receptionist. After getting Tom's address, the two drove over, unaware that the henchman had been spotted following him. Tom pointed a gun at the henchman, warning him to stay away from Kyle. The henchman cautiously watched Tom while relentlessly questioning him. Back at his place, Tom reported his current situation to someone. Meanwhile, Kyle and Declan arrived outside, where Kyle could hear Tom talking on the phone and the sounds of Lori and her friends from the surveillance camera. As he focused harder on the conversation, a jolt of electric charge in his head urged him to stop listening. They couldn't understand why Lori's voice was coming from inside. After Tom left, the two snuck into the room through the bathroom and discovered a hidden surveillance camera set up by Tom in Nicole's house. Just as they were about to destroy it, Tom returned. They escaped through the window, but Tom noticed the open camera and felt something was off. He spotted the two fleeing at the window while the henchman also saw them and, after reporting to his superior, pursued them. Kyle and Declan went to the carnival where they ran into Amanda and her boyfriend. Amanda loved the carousel, but the boy found it childish, so Kyle accompanied her on the ride. While on the carousel, Kyle overheard them discussing the basketball boy's double life. Kyle used his eavesdropping ability, but felt the electric charge in his brain growing stronger. After a while, he realized the henchman was threatening Tom with a gun. He struggled to listen in on their conversation, but the charge intensified until he convulsed and collapsed, disrupting the henchman's plan to kill him amidst the panicking crowd. Kyle was taken to the hospital where tests showed that his brain activity had returned to normal levels. This led many to believe that the initial results had been a machine error orchestrated by the female leader. When Declan visited Kyle in the hospital, he asked what Kyle had been hearing. Kyle honestly told him, and Declan believed he should share this information with Nicole's family since they were his loved ones. Just as Kyle was about to reveal the truth to Nicole, the detective walked into the room with a couple who looked distressed. They called Kyle Noah, and the woman, tearful, claimed to be his mother. The couple claiming to be Kyle's parents, the Petersons, recounted the events leading up to Kyle's disappearance. They explained that 5 years ago, Kyle went to school and never returned. They shared all of Kyle's unique traits, how smart he was, how quickly he learned, and so on. Under Nicole's subtle prompting, they mentioned that Kyle had no belly button due to organ displacement, which had required corrective surgery. Kyle's dad informed everyone that they had conducted a DNA test with Kyle, and once the results were in, the truth would be revealed. To help jog Kyle's memory, they brought an album filled with his childhood photos. However, as Kyle looked through the pictures, he seemed to have no recollection of them. He approached the surveillance camera Tom had installed in his room and demanded to know who those people were. In a fit of emotion, he broke the camera and then asked his supposed parents where he was born, whether he had siblings or pets. They answered each question, even mentioning he once had a beloved cat that had a clawfoot bathtub, hence his fondness for sleeping in bathtubs. He also asked the Petersons who Professor Kern and Adam were, but they claimed not to know them. Nicole suggested these two might have been encountered during the 5 years of his disappearance. The kids all went to Amanda's memorial service. Meanwhile, Nicole and Stephen were at home looking through the album the Petersons had brought. They saw young Kyle so happy and felt joy at the thought of him returning to his family. Then, the hospital called to confirm that Kyle's DNA matched that of his supposed parents. However, Kyle couldn't believe the results. To him, they felt like strangers, and Nicole's family was his true family. He wasn't going anywhere. With his questions still unanswered, Kyle went to the church to think things over alone. A man sat down beside him, and Kyle expressed his desire for a guardian angel to guide him. The man urged him to believe that whether he was a believer or not, there was someone in the world quietly watching over him. On the way home, the henchman followed Kyle closely until suddenly, Tom knocked him out with a drug and dragged him into the forest where he had woken up. Kyle recalled what had happened before his waking up. Professor Kern had intended to kill both Tom and Kyle. In a desperate act, Tom had to strike first, killing Professor Kern. As Kyle regained his memory, he questioned Tom about why he had taken him away. Just then, the henchman, hiding in the shadows, shot Tom. They quickly jumped into a car and escaped the forest. On the drive home, Kyle pressed Tom for answers, and Tom was forced to tell him everything. The Petersons were not his biological parents. His lack of previous memories was because he didn't exist in this world before his waking up. To learn more, Kyle would need to go with them to meet the one who could answer all his questions. Back home, Kyle told his family he remembered things now, calling the Petersons mom and dad, and they reminisced about small details from his childhood. Stephen asked when they were leaving, and Kyle, anxious, insisted he was ready to go anytime. Josh sadly walked away. At the farewell party, Declan was upset with Kyle for not telling him about his sudden departure. Kyle reassured him that if there were other reasons, he would have found a way to inform him. As the family packed Kyle's things, Josh left the house alone, making Stephen unhappy as well. Nicole comforted him, saying there's no such thing as a never-ending party, and he would have to accept it gradually. While packing, Nicole explained to Kyle that if Josh didn't come back, he shouldn't hold it against him. Kyle understood Josh's feelings. Just before Kyle left, Josh returned to see him off. Kyle hugged each family member goodbye and told Declan he left something for him. After Kyle drove away, Nicole looked at their family photo, unable to hide her sadness. Declan went to Kyle's old room and found evidence of the story Kyle had crafted with the Petersons. Once they left, the Petersons stopped pretending to be Kyle's family. Kyle asked how the DNA test was conducted, and the Petersons replied that they had complete records. Meanwhile, an injured Tom received a call from Adam, reporting that the mission was complete and Kyle would soon meet the Petersons. The Petersons took Kyle to meet the man he had encountered in the church. The man introduced himself as Adam and assured Kyle that he would reveal the whole truth. On the other side, the henchman reported to the female leader that Kyle had been picked up by his biological parents as if he had vanished from the earth. She told him not to worry. She had ways to uncover the mastermind behind it all. In the meantime, they had developed a new test subject. It's a girl who was designated 28. And with that, the first season of this drama comes to an end.